Welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. Join Janet and her friends as they gather at the intersection of consciousness and self-experience, what being consciousness in human form is all about. Access heart-centered awareness with them and feel the difference in the moment that will last a lifetime.
Hello, and welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. I'm Janet Barrett, and this is my invitation to you to join me in celebrating being alive in 2020. That is my direction this year with this podcast, celebrating life and being in a body form. The intersections of consciousness and self is where the physical and non-physical realms of being manifest into a being, into a body form. Together, these realms are the way we explore being, essence, soul, spirit, universe, source, consciousness. It is how, as individuals, we connect through the quantum realities of morphic resonances and morphic entanglements as oneness and wholeness, and the dynamics in play with having a brain and body, along with a mind that navigates the realities of that brain and body in physical environments. It is the stories that come out of a collection of perceptions and interpretations of sensory input we each are. It is the expression of spirit in physical terms. Humans experience phenomena, as all living creatures do. Any new approach to celebrating being alive may mean resetting our phenomena evaluators, that sense of control and judgment we all come with. We look to release trapped energies in our existing stories of self-definition, changing our patterns of behavior and thinking. It means we let the past be the past and not the present, and dictating the future. Welcome, then, to the wonder of experiencing phenomena. It is what life is truly all about, how we take in information and what we do with it. Human awareness is organized around being able to judge those experiences of input to form and define oneself. We each decide what life is about. We construct frameworks as rules and limits out of the condensed input, generating beliefs and behavior and thinking that guide our daily lives. What is it like to experience the events of life from within the framework of consciousness thrown in? Joining me today is a fellow reality dancer, Jill Falk, visual fine artist, massage therapist, and quantum explorer. What is reality free to be when we are not in judgment of the phenomena of being in form? How do you hold oneself in appreciation and gratitude of the body and its wonderful sensory design? Phenomena are bits of information. Phenomenon is a fact or situation that is observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question. This is our individual sensory perceptions in play. We question what we sense. Being open to the wonder of experiencing phenomena is not judging that our senses are telling us information. We judge what they are telling us. Phenomena is also stuff. I use the word stuff as it is a non-attachment to a label. Stuff happens. That resonates differently than if I said the car crashed. I will relate, not judge, and not react emotionally to the first as I do in the latter, which is very helpful. We're also going to use the word story. You'll hear me use it a lot during our conversation. Story is an account of imaginary or real people and events told for entertainment. Story can be an account of past events in someone's life or in the evolution of something. Our lives each follow an individual storyline called I. We follow those before us and identify with their story through clan, family, or community. We express our evolution in terms of stories and myths and drawings. Our identities and the facts of the past are all subject to the biases of emotions, intentions, memories, time, and environment. Through our own recounting, our stories will have the ability to change and evolve and respond in the moment so that what was is now fluid. My friend Jill Falk is a hidden treasure. She may be verbally quiet by nature, but she speaks quite clearly and expressively in her creative clothing combinations and in her thinking. She expresses the world through a finely tuned eye for design, patterns, and textures that are all around us. She understands so well that life is art, and she is the rainbow dancing. She demonstrates courage and accomplishment, and I am often in awe of her sensory skills and her ability to articulate the interactions of information as phenomena with the human experience. Off the charts in human terms, she maintains gentleness, even in times of heavy-hearted dynamics. She reminds us how we each are all just children hiding in our appearance of maturity. Jill wants to live in a world where creative genius is the norm, and high fives are handed out freely in the streets. She seeks to express through artistic means the subtle and intricate layers that make up the fabric of the universe. She often thinks in terms of pictures with subtitles at the bottom. Her hobbies include, but are not limited to, fiddling, surfing, lucid dreaming, and the quantum sciences. As an intergalactic quantum sorceress, she is sought after throughout the greater cosmos as an experiential scientist and seer. Her art is filled with interactive pieces between a changing light source and your eye and mind. She asks us to see color in all the shades of gray matter that make up life. Her website is www.jillfalkart.com. Hello, Jill. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, this will be fun. We've been talking about what the show is going to look like. And for all of those of you that are perhaps new to this podcast adventure, we allow what shows up to show up. There's not much predicated whenever we have a topic. It's always just a starting place. So in celebration of the new year, I thought any work that Jill and I do that we offer you is an opening. So, and we'll be in that set of rules today as we engage in our time here together. So let's see. Let's see. Let me just quiet. So what are you noticing right in this moment, Jill? Let's start there, and then we'll see what shows up here.
Well, I love that you used the word opening, because I feel like that's just like a lot of what I'm experiencing in general. And I feel like even in this moment, like as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I want to go into that. Because I feel like there's such a, I don't know, I feel like somehow I want to tie together like opening and vulnerability. And I feel like that's something I'm learning to kind of try and just be with in the moment and be with like experience and phenomena, I guess, like what we were talking about before and coming into the show is just like, I don't know, like this experience of like being so vulnerable that I'm willing to open into the moment, like into the phenomena of the moment without a story and like without my mind's definition, and kind of like, I don't know, like just experiencing, I don't know, there's like a magic that I'm starting to find in that. And a lot of it is also connected to my body. And I'm starting to like notice when I go into my mind, it's a very different experience, but it can happen in these super subtle ways. And yeah, just that opening, I really like that.
All right, I told you all, she's one of my hidden treasures, because look at what she brings all of us, all right? And that as an artist, and a lot of the ways that Jill expresses and experiences life. It's about being present and looking at how we have our frameworks. Now, and you're demonstrating the association of openness with vulnerability, which might not be someone else's awareness. And I think that is so true, Jill. We have those associations, and this is what this is going to be fun. So everyone, maybe notice how you're experiencing being present right in this moment, and how we're hanging out in the state of openness or opening to openness that probably has vulnerability included in it. And the experience of being vulnerable and open and being okay with it, because the show is about the wonder and joy of experiencing phenomena. And if we take our judgments out, and any of us would probably say, ooh, to be vulnerable, that's not good. I got to be careful. There's some kind of sense in there that we have to be paying attention to. And what we're going to look at today, and this is why we don't know where we'll go with the show, is what happens when we can let go of the story, the framework that says it's vulnerability, when perhaps it's something else. What if that's just from within that perspective of defense, strong and weak? And if we change the rule set, if we change what that's about, perhaps it's more about excitement. And what would that be like? Oh, wow. That shifts it. Can you feel that, Jill?
I actually have no idea what you just said.
I love it.
Parts of it, but I was like, what?
You're out there already. Triggered. Okay. Now, see where honesty will get you? That's great. Okay. Because we do that. We can just go places and really quickly, and you are one of those hidden treasures. You don't have a lot of barriers to going where you're going to go. I love it. No. Oh, all right, in case we've lost the rest of the audience. And being open might be a challenge for some. That being, huh? Go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I actually, just then I was like, I felt like, it's like in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka, whatever, the old one, and they're like drinking the fizz Lipton drink, and then they're just floating out, like you don't know what's gonna happen. And I feel like that's that openness, and that's that vulnerability in the moment. Is like, if I really let myself be that vulnerable, like I could just start floating off into space in a way, or like that's the feeling I have sometimes, where I think what my mind is trying to protect me from, because there's no, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't always know what my own response is going to be.
That's when you let go of that story. Do you see? So you demonstrating so clearly how the story anchors us, and it's a centering device. Mm-hmm. And so in letting that open up, maybe we want to put not necessarily brakes on it, but maybe we want to put some, well, you don't have to totally lose yourself kind of thing to it. And you go, okay, what would it be like to be open and being present? This is what we're talking about. We're relaxing our story so that new experiences can come in. You just demonstrated the wonder of physical phenomena. Emotional phenomena, and how we experience being alive, right? And what we think reality is, and how we've encompassed being in that, and why we are attached to our stories, perhaps, or our patterns, and where that sets us. And I want to thank you for setting us free. There could be a lot of giggles this show. All right, so everybody just notice, because she can't. So you notice what it's like for Jill to be a little looser with her story and how that you're experiencing it. Great way to start the year off. So, and just now notice being present, Jill, and what are you aware of?
I mean, like, really just like a lot of sensation in my body and like a feeling of well-being.
Now look at that. Look at that. You let go of that story and there's a sense of well-being. Yeah, everyone noticed that. Right. Because we got tangled up in our stories, in our habits, in our patterns. All those conditions and influences. And in our truth, in our authentic voice, there's the sheer joy in being. I guarantee that's in everyone. And you've just set yourself to either be aware of it in increments, or big, small, little, whatever it might be. Yeah.
What I like that you keep using the word pattern, because I've been thinking about that lately and just kind of looking at how, pattern and parent are like very similar sort of words. And like these ways where I feel like I notice where I've been entrained from my, from childhood, my environment or whatever, to kind of bond to certain patterns. And a lot of times they're not useful patterns. So I've been really playing with noticing like kind of how my emotional responses or my ability to be open and vulnerable in the moment, maybe that's a better way of looking at it, or more useful, is like how much that has been conditioned to certain patterns and like patterns of thought, or like story as pattern, but like also pattern as parent, because I've been finding these spaces where it's like I'm afraid to let go of certain stories that remind me of my parents, I think, at some deeper level, or a certain pattern of being like that feels familiar, and therefore reassuring.
Oh, look at those two, familiar and familiar.
Yeah. And like just the crazy making sometimes in the moment that can bring, because a lot of times it's a mind pattern usually is what I'm finding, and it's like it's bringing that story, that old familiar story, that old familial story, that old pattern to the moment, and then it's usually not applicable.
Well, but then we're going to judge it, right? We judge the story, and our identity is caught up in the story. So once we start to open that up, and we see all the way it's organized, which is your ability to see all the context that's involved. For some, we're not going to have that necessarily, and that doesn't mean it's any more true or to the detail that might be involved in it. It just speaks to how aware, how much awareness in our sensory bodies, and this is part of it, that we can notice information. So it doesn't make anything right or wrong. It's just, this is truly speaking to the wonder of phenomena when you're able to label that's a mindset, that's an emotional context, that's a feeling, and there's all the textures about being in form, I think you're talking about really well.
Yeah, and like as you're talking, I really just see, it's like what I notice is just like this, how space sort of opens up, and it's like when we sort of let everything open up. Like for me, I do see it really visually, and I see sort of this space. It's like 360, like everything. So it's almost like you can take pieces of information, like a thought maybe even, and like it can sort of become visually represented, and like you can sort of turn it and shift it and sort of see how that affects the quality of the experience of the moment, and sort of like, I don't know, it's like, that, I don't know if it's a feeling, like whatever that is, when we're just like in the moment, and it's sort of like you're just here.
I think you're describing really well the inability to express what we're expressing. And
Well
I mean
put.
that
I
in the
love
sense of
it.
in the sense of language, the construct of language. And we're speaking of things that is like it's just a state, it's just an awareness. And then we go to try and define it and say it. Well, I'm thinking it, I'm feeling it, I'm touching it, I don't know what the hell, but here I am, kind of thing. And in because explanation is really useful in mindsets, right? We and in control and in having the patterns and knowing where we are, and so as placement in relation to all those things speak to being all places and no place and one place and many places all at the same time. And it's about the dynamic of being, don't you think? I mean, that's really what phenomena is. And I just so love how you have this remarkable ability to sense all that in some way and in different ways, right? And you can articulate it well. And whether it's a visual and it's coming out in a painting that you're doing, or in a massage and you're working on a body, or in being able to notice information in a quantum relationship, that speaks to the universality of the dynamic of being to me. You embrace that really well. Now, I can appreciate that that's not been an easy journey, that hasn't been an easy place to be in. But in the grace that can come, I salute you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all I can really say to that. But yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
everyone just be noticing. We're going to talk about and feel. We're going to feel a lot. We're going to sense a lot. Jill's, as she's explained, has a lot of visual presentation in her experience. And so you may see more than you would normally see. And just framework and this kind of work when we do consciousness technologies, and both Jill and I come out of matrix energetics training that we did for years, and that has a unifying principle to it, an ability to take reality, and we each do it in our own way, but there's a lot of crossover in accepting that reality is what you perceive it to be. So what your sensory mechanism is will be dominating in how you perceive reality. And you got to recognize that reality is a perception. And we can share in some of it, and other things are totally unique to the individual. So we appreciate all that. So what do we notice, Jill, about being present? How does that, what is that for you?
Oh, wow. Wow, well, I feel like right now, again, I kind of come back to that sense of well-being and just sort of like, looking for that anchoredness in self, or like, I know you talk a lot about heart space. I feel like that's something I track a lot, like just like coming back into whatever that is. But then I guess back to the opening again, and openness, and sort of like not, because I know sometimes like I'll have this idea and like, oh, it was like this last time, so it's going to be like this again, or I really liked that feeling at one point, but it's like, but that also is like not me fully being open in the or coming back to the moment.
Your and so expectation.
When I feel like, and I feel like, I think this has been like a lifelong interest for me, really, is like what is that? And I feel like there's, it's always different, but then there's also like, I feel like part of it comes from just this like trust of like, it's there, like it's gonna be there, whatever it is, and just like actually trusting whatever my experience is in the moment, whatever that is, and even if it's pain or sadness or grief, or like these things that sometimes, want to trigger, a contractive response, it's like whatever it is in the moment, like just trust that. And
That's the key to it, I think, sweetie. You nailed it right there. Is that entrust whatever it is, right? Because that is the experience, and that's the honesty of being present to it. Doesn't mean it's going to last a lifetime. It's in that moment, and how is that useful in the context of how you experience information? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because so many people can have aversions to feeling pain, for instance, and if it's physical pain or mental pain or emotional pain, pain is a reality in being because it's one of those things we can feel, and then that we think that that's real and we think that that's it, and the body has a remarkable ability. And I don't know if it's the body so much or mindsets or something that encode the experience of pain in all the different ways we can feel it and make it something. And it's like, well, nah, I don't want to go there again, right? And so then you start to build reference to it. You start to build resistance to it. You start to build a lot of things. And it's now part of whatever. You're never free of it because you're in resistance or denial, whatever. It's there. And it could be love. But I think for most people that we don't have really a good sense of what love is. We have an idea of it. But when you're ever into unconditional love, you're into conditioned love. Love has no conditions. It doesn't even belong in that. But that seems to be the ultimate gold in the human experience. I think that's the treasure of being, is to feel love, because it's everything from the body's mindsets, because love is that oxytocin you get in the womb, right? Or out of, or something where it's essential to us. So we know it. I'm sure everyone could mark how much is available if we thought about it, right? And that's something that's measurable, because you can see it demonstrated in your actions and in your feelings and your encoding of your story, where you reside to that. And I'm familiar with a lot of people who think of as consciousness or God, source, universe, whatever their words might be. Oh, that's love. And that's giving it more of a human quality to me than the non-agenda, just information's present kind of state that's in a warm, supportive environment, right? And it's to what degree you want. So in feeling connection, which is what that oxytocin really does, it's to what degree of connection you're in and what kind of connection and the condition of it, and when on Tuesdays at 3:00 you feel it for a moment, and then if you're lucky you can feel it the next Tuesday at 3:00, and then the patterns develop. We have this remarkable ability to set up reality however we want. The power of association, I think, is so tremendous in the human mindset. What we associate things with, right? Yeah. And I am guilty as anybody about, well, I was brushing my teeth and something happened. And so every time, after a while, it was when I was brushing my teeth is always the context that thing happens. And then after a while, you don't want to brush your teeth, and all of this is working on a level you're not paying attention to. So finally you're at the dentist and he goes, have you been flossing or have you been brushing? And you go, yeah, sure, and you go, oh, I really didn't want to do that because I have this association. And it's just the way we organize ourselves is just remarkable. So, all right, now what are we noticing? Because I have no idea where we went. So
no, that was great. I was tracking it. I was tracking it. Well, and because that's like I think that's such a profound topic, like that idea of love and conditional love and like attachment and all these things, because I feel like ultimately, yeah, like that is like, I think like just the jewel of human existence is to feel that. But I feel like the tricky thing is like it really is there all the time once you learn to access it in your own self. Right. And it's a tricky dance to experience that with another person or a thing, and I feel like ultimately it's because to really hold that unconditional love and regard for myself and another person, I really have to like let them be whatever they are. Like I can't put anything on them. And that's scary, right? Because I think that we're sold that idea so much, like, oh, you should have this like ultimate relationship with another person or people or whatever, and it should always hold that all the time. And that's unsustainable and not very likely. And like if I make that conditional, you know, like we're talking about, if I set that up like, okay, every time I see this person or they say a certain thing to me or they act the way I think they should, then I'll feel that love. But then again, then that's right back into conditions. Right. And that's not unconditional. And I think like, I don't know, I feel like the trick of 3Ding is, I mean, I guess another workaround though is like, sometimes I put things in my phone. It's like I think of it as a time machine, and I'm like, so I could just put like, feel unconditional love, you know, at this time every day. Like that's one way to work with it. But the other way is like for me to just like practice remembering that it's me. Like I can access that state. I don't need an external validator to experience that. And the more that I do that, the more that I'm going to actually have that with other people, like especially the less attached I am to like a specific sort of situation or person or outcome. I don't know. And I think that's a pretty cool thing, right? Like, because I find that the more that I practice that, at least I think that's what's happening. Like the more I do kind of have that with people in different ways, even if it's like massage clients or like, you know, in my studio practice, even by myself or with my cat. It's like, because I'm more willing and able to show up for it and actually hold it. And I think everything maybe is practice just for that, for me to be more of that person in the world as much as I can be. And just, yeah, to be able to hold it. Because I guess too, like those are the people that I value the most in my life, or that feel really special, or the people that do hold that for me. And I guess that just becomes, I don't know, a reference for like more of who I want to become just every day, like even in the mundane. And then the mundane becomes the not mundane because it's part of experiencing that sort of most incredible state of that unconditional love.
Well, and I think this is can be perceived as a tricky dance, or we can shift to the state where there is only love. That's my reference in the world, and that's it. And sometimes you're really in it, and other times you have a different relating to it. Right. And which is still being in it. You're just in a different placement with the state, with the sense of it. And, you know, one thing that's tricky is we love ultimatums. The brain, you know, mind loves ultimatums. It's this or that because it's really clear and simple. When in reality, what we've come to learn is that it's all about discernments within a particular viewpoint. And either you're in the middle of it, or you're generating it, or you're out of it, and you're still generating whether you're in or out of it. And that's the remarkable facility of brain and mind and body in being. They're all working together, and we do our best to be in the same reference. Life is good when body, mind, and spirit, if we're going to hold those distinctions. And all my friendships with my indigenous guests and stuff, I'm coming to appreciate more their perspectives that really, you know, that's just a bunch of hooey and you just need to just be. And it's all one. And that we want to get all those variables in alignment. And discordancy and what we call problems and challenges are where things are out of the alignment of whatever we might be looking for. And it's the less attached we are to the outcome being a challenge, the more that becomes an easier course correction Does that make sense? That when I'm not in resistance to what is showing up and I'm in a state that says life is good, doesn't matter what it looks like. Yes, there'll be days when I'm farther out of that than in it, and doesn't matter. Bottom line is being works. And I'm either in form or I'm out of form. And when I'm in form, can be out of form with it. And when I'm out of form, I can be easily in form with it. Does that, can you track that at all?
I don't track it. I don't know the word. I'm not tracking the words so much, but I'm tracking the state.
Yes. See,
like,
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, that's all you need.
It's the state. The words are way behind.
Yeah.
Interpretive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think it is. It's letting go of the outcome. Because the other thing I've been noticing, what I've really been learning the last 3 years too, is because even when I'm attached to an outcome that I think is good, I can get myself into so much trouble. Like I did that 3 years ago. I was like, I finally figured out this life thing. And like, I totally thought what I was following, I was like, yeah, this is everything I've always wanted. And like, I followed that. And like, it ended up being like one of the worst things I ever did in my life. And, like,
illusion is really strong.
Yes. Oh my God. And it was like, but the key was what I really want to bring up. It's not so much about the drama of all that, which was pretty dramatic, but yes, very entertaining. I mean, don't want to do it again, but yeah, sure. At least I'm alive. But like, it's that quality of whatever that happens when I like shift out of like my actual lived experience of the moment and like whatever that is, and I trade it in for like the shiny thought judgment lining of the mind, right? Like even the judgment even of this is good or like this is what I want, because like I'm also finding a lot of what I think I want or what I've thought I wanted is just all part of that mind jumble, and it's like I think that's why more and more I'm coming to this space. Like I'm almost like the conversation I feel like I'm having with the universe is like I want this quality of love, this state. I want more of that, and like you figure out the details, like, because I kind of don't know. Like I actually like really coming out this last year, I got to a point I was kind of afraid of like of like following anything in my mind, because I was like, I thought I knew what I wanted. Like I thought I was making all these choices that were like taking me to this thing that I'd always wanted, or like kind of a version of it. And it was like, but it took me out of myself. And like, that's what I'm really coming back into, is like, that's what's important, is coming back into myself and like really paying attention to that in every moment. Like I can't figure it out in the future. I can't figure it out in the past, but I can like feel it right now. And then like really trusting what's showing up for me in the moment and like letting go. Like my mind has so many ways that it evaluates reality and like my experience. And I'm finding a lot of the times where I can slip into it thinking it's a useful, like distinctor of consciousness is where I think that it's the right choice, or like it's something good, or it's something that's going to bring me a benefit in the future. And that, to me, that's still a tricky ground, because I feel like, yeah, I do want to make like, air quotes, smart choices or whatever. But at the same time, I'm recognizing I don't always know what that is. Like, I don't know, brain. Like, my brain has stuff in it, and I don't know if I can trust it. That's kind of...
Well, I think what you're speaking to is the way we get entrained to make choices, right? When our story has in it disclaimers along the way, that and you don't develop, perhaps, or you have a different sense of development of who self is, and you can feel, I am sure there are people that can hold the awareness of their different senses of self, and it goes everywhere from self that is easy to be because its ego is just a sense of flow, right? To the egotistical that's got investment in one over the other and self over another. And, there's all these different arrangements in dynamic states that we hold within ourselves. And mind is accessing everything in certain realms with whatever control is. Our stories, our biases are directing, and I think some people probably are more tuned in on the differences, or it's just easier to go with this one, right? This choice, and it loses those other ones, and so that choice becomes the dominant sense of self that's running things. And what we're talking about is that, and also consciousness that is within each of us, that is that authentic voice, that doesn't have the agendas to the degrees that the self-identity does, right? So in the development of our stories, how we learn to separate, value, give importance to, probably is part of what goes in the development of being, being conscious here in form. And some of us are more exploratory about that. And some of us are really hard set into some reality, and some of us are going to go, whoa, that's interesting. That might be possible. Sure, that's not my experience. Doesn't mean it's not your experience. And then there's others, or they're going to look at that from a different sense of, we can call it logic, and go, that makes no sense whatsoever. And, there must be something wrong or odd, or, I need to keep you safe in the name of love, so don't do that because we don't want people looking at you, or whatever the story might be, right? And I think what you're describing so well is holding awareness of a lot of different viewpoints, and which one's you, and they're probably all, which is not necessarily reassuring. It just maybe gives you more awareness of, I get to make a choice. Which one do I want to follow here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you're talking, I mean, I'm slipping in this space where this has been coming up again. I've been sort of seeing this as like a thing lately, I guess. But just like, so if we think of the moment really as like, I've been thinking as like the darkness, right? Or like the night sky. Like it's sort of everything, and it goes on forever. It's like full of potential. It's emergent. Like, anything could come out of there. Like I can kind of see it if there's stars, but I kind of can't see it. And I've been sort of thinking that state is like the mother, really. It's like, it's everything, and it contains all the possibilities. And then there's like the star, stars are light points of light. And I was sort of been thinking of that as like the father aspect or whatever, like just to put it in some sort of context, but like thoughts in the mind or different parts of the self, and there's these little, there's points of light, points of reference, and they can be sort of configured in the moment. Like if I connect some, with different lines and make different geometric points or whatever, and kind of create some sort of experience or container or some sort of sense or meaning out of the points, whatever that might be, or maybe like an astrological sign, something like that. Like I have some sort of, experiential sort of reference in relation to that now. I've been kind of thinking about that. Like that could be like a child aspect or something, it's something that's birthed in the moment and experienced. And like it might be carried over into another moment, or it might not. Like I don't know. It's like we're constantly sort of creating these references in every moment, and some we leave behind, and some we take with us, or some we might utilize for a while and then we let them go. Some might stay with us most of our lives, and some might just blip in and out for a second, and we totally forget about it until, I don't know, one day we're like, oh yeah, I remember that happened, but I had actually totally forgotten. Because I'm pretty interested too in like the moment is infinite and it has everything, but then it's like, what is it that we carry with us moment to moment? And maybe in that way, maybe that is like every moment is like a lifetime, and like how we create the continuity of moments. Maybe that's that's how we experience like multiple lives in a single life. I don't know.
Right. I could follow that. I think I was writing that this morning, actually.
That was perfect. You're scribing for me.
Right. Well, it's what you do with the information, right? You can take it in. You have a wonderful, marvelous. You can feel your eye. You can feel your eye. How about that? In the way it's drawing, it's making. It's engaging, right? There's no distance in that. This is you participating in life. You have a sensory experience, and you're seeing connections, and you're seeing nuances, and you're experiencing and you're seeing tremendous amounts of information that we can articulate, not articulate, remember, not remember. It all comes together in this incredible experience about experiencing information, right? And some is articulated simply and clearly, and others it's just, well, you'll notice it when you come to it. And if you just open, right, be present, without your filters, without any of us, everyone notice this, in just being open to information, being present without a story. Now, how you notice your story is how you notice the information. And the inner talk that gets generated as a result of what you witness. You can witness in how you feel, and what you see and what you hear, all our senses, right? You can witness in knowing, the claircognizance, where you just hold awareness of something. There it went. I have no story to that. Facts have stories to them. They have history. Claircognizance, your knowing, is where you don't have any facts, you don't have any story, it's just information. Your awareness is present. So that's as viable, probably more so, because that's hitting you without running through mind. And you can that's more heart awareness for me. That is consciousness speaking to me when I notice it from a knowing place. When I have to learn something, that's knowledge, and that's running through mind. So you hold awareness of something, and I'm always using the word noticing. What are we noticing in the moment? And I use that term. We learned that. It's an effective term. It leaves me open to, I can hear it, I can see it, I can feel it, I can know it, and that has no reference. Most information, to be quite honest, there's majority of information to me doesn't have a human reference. And that's where we get stories of Lemuria and angels and all that kind of thing. We make them fit because we that's what we do. We have this wonderful mind, right brain and left brain organization. And so we create stuff all the time because it registers differently in the body and in the story and in what we're creating. And this is the joy of being present to me. This is what essence is. It's the experience in some context, in some way. And this is where, if I don't judge it, where hurting my foot and going into pain is as valuable as skipping down the street. Do you get that, Jill? Does that make?
I'm talking that. Yeah, it actually, I love that because, yeah, like it's like really, yeah, the joy and like everything it's about being here right now and being inside, like getting into whatever experience is happening as like deeply as possible. Like it reminds me, I had this dream recently where I was like kind of like somehow I'd made it through like not being in form and like being all these different particles and not being informed to being informed, being in my body, and I was standing in a field and I was like, I was just like, holy shit. I was like, this is what we're all trying to do. We're trying to get here. We're not trying to get out. And I was like, guys. Like, we're trying to get in. We're not trying to get out. I was like, holy crap. It's been all backwards in my mind. Like trying to get, it's like, no, we're trying to get in. That's what everything, all the particles are trying to do. Who knows if that's accurate, but I mean, I think there's something there.
Yeah. That'd be a cosmic joke for all of us who've organized this. See, and that makes total sense to me because this is the physical realm of contrast. So as much as I would say in the years that I've been involved with people, getting out of here is primal. It's like, I don't want to be in for it. And in all my years of physical pain and distress, I'm like, I never went that way. It was always about, well, get through this, and not to be a martyr to it, though someone might call it that. It was about having the experience, not to judge it, just to have it, right? Because you won't. It's different when you're out of form. Anyway, so yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. I mean, I don't know. I kind of relating it to surfing right now or something. It's like, I don't know if you're surfing. It's like, yeah, it's like, it can be scary, right? If you're out on a big day and you're like, I don't really know. But it's like, it's also like, that's what you want. And there's sort of like this moment where you're like, you have to let go, and like your mind has to let go, or it won't let you drop in. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't know, and I feel like we talk about this sometimes too outside of here, but like that, the kind of like that excitement versus fear, it's like there's a fine line, and sort of that, like that definition kind of shifts the experience. And I feel like, yeah, that maybe it's like in the moment, the moment sort of like this wave that we're riding, and it's like, I can hold myself back from it, but I'll never drop in and actually experience that drop and sort of that free fall that I might have, and like actually get to ride that wave. And I think, yeah, it's like, you want to be in that. You want to experience it. I mean, I want to experience it. And sometimes I forget that, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go down there. I might die or whatever. But it's like, really, I want to experience the moment. And like, I think that comes back again to that trust and that opening, as if I remember, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here to ride this, whatever it is in the moment.
Well, it's how present we are, right? Okay, because what you bring up, so remind me so well of, is when we would go to seminar, and it could be any seminar, but certainly our matrix energetics seminars, which were a lot of experience, and people would come from all different kinds of backgrounds and trainings, and they would come and they would take notes, because note taking was really important, because when you take notes, then you're going to get it, you hear it, you learn it 35% more, something like that. But they were not seminars to take notes in, really. They were experiential seminars. And some seminars, and lots of different kinds of training, it's not about having the experience, it's about the relay of information, right? And so what was so wonderful about any consciousness technology seminars and UN work and all that I've done over the years was that it was about being in the experience of it. It was not about taking note, because what was noting it was the body, was the sense of self, was the being present, was consciousness, was the letting go of the limits of the box I had put myself in. And so I would always ask people, how many times have you been here? And you would find people would come back, because the first time they were probably busy taking notes, and they were missing the experience because the mind was getting details, and they were still getting the experience. They just weren't conscious of it. When mind is engaged, you're not conscious, right? And it was, I went to 55, helped at over 55 seminars myself over the years. And I was pretty much on the floor having my experience, literally laid out on the floor for those that never went to one, being present to what was happening, the dynamics, because that was my encouragement to everyone is, you know, you won't remember what you think you learned anyway. There's nothing here to learn. It's just about being. And when they've created context for us to be, and it's to be safe because you're in a group, you know, la-di-da, la-di-da. And lots of things happen when you left that that ballroom afterwards that might have put one in question. But in those experiences, it was about having your experience. And that was about being present. And you know how people go to seminars and go to classes and do things, and they're really not present. They have some agenda going on. And so they're hit and miss with what they gain out of it. And because those are situations that are set up to have certain outcomes, we have to look at how do we live life? Are we just trying to get by? Are we looking to embrace what life has to offer? And that's what you and I are experiencing here, and our audience is experiencing here. It's about the delight in being present. A full body. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, like, there's that I love, like, everything you're bringing up too, because it's like that level of like self-authorship and self-authority in a way of like, I become the author of my reality when I allow myself to fully experience it, and I'm not constantly trying to like conform it or write it or modify it to fit some other version of reality that I think it should be.
Well, that's still you in control. You're just not using it in a way that you could, right? Whatever the setup is, it's our setup.
Sure.
So we always have to be responsible for that. And what you're describing is how we often are doing things that are not useful, right? In a certain context. So we're always having to negotiate that with ourselves, and hopefully it changes. How we negotiate things. There are no victims, right? There's just people willing to take on a lot of stuff. For themselves and for others, how to interact. I don't judge those things. I appreciate anything anybody ever goes through, because I know that I can extend myself to that place, and I can have that experience in that way also. Compassion's good. So, everyone, be noticing. We're just about at the end of our conversation here with Jill. And notice how you might be taking in information. Do you see things like she does? Is this a comfortable conversation for you? Or is it inviting you to notice areas that maybe haven't had a lot of light on them? This is going to be an incredible year, as every year is incredible when one is in life. And this is a good, give up those resolutions. They don't really, people tend to forget them after a couple of weeks. Just be present. If that's the only thing you resolve this year, to partake in life, you're doing just fine. What are you noticing, Jill? You got anything there you'd like to close with?
It's funny. I kind of want to tell a story.
Okay, go for it. Well, we're game.
So this just popped in my head. I hadn't thought of it in a while, but it's kind of has to do with, I mean, it was kind of like coming out of Matrix Energetics and that whole world. And then like a part of me is like, okay, I'm having all these experiences, but like, what's real? You know, like what's reality? And so then I decided to do pre-med, because I was like, well, obviously medicine's real. Like that world is real. Let me go do that, and I'll get to the bottom of this. Like I need to figure this out. So I'm doing calculus and chemistry and all these things, and I'm kind of like learning things, and I'm like trying to match up the reality. Like I knew it, like that other stuff was woo-woo or whatever, you know, like the science is real, math is real, all this stuff. And I'm like sitting in a bookstore one day, and I'm in the metaphysics section because I love it. And I'm just like looking at a book, and I'm still having this internal struggle, you know, the different parts of myself that are like, this is real. No, this is real. Or like, it all needs to make sense somehow. And all of a sudden I went into this state because I'll see things a lot of times. Like I'll just sort of spontaneously see things. And I was sort of like, all of a sudden I was like in this field and I'm like looking out and I see all these tables, like as far as I can see. And there's like these beings, they're kind of like humanoid beings with like, you know, I don't know, like not really human skin, but kind of like skin. And they're like all writing, like they're like all looking down, writing on these tables. And I was sort of like, oh, what's going on? And like, I'm just sort of feeling in. I'm like, oh, they're like, because I'm feeling into them. And it's like, oh, they're each one is sort of writing down like all these different things in the universe. Like one is just like writing about the motion of stars in the sky or what. I don't really know because I'm perceiving it through my own filters, but like, you know, one of them is tracking sounds, I don't know, like different things. And I'm getting really into this, right? I'm like going deeper and deeper. I'm like, this is really cool. I love it. And then like the other parts that are like, dude, we're into science now. This is bullshit. I was like, yeah, like this isn't real. So I'm like, I start to pull out of it, you know, I'm pulling myself out of it. And I was like, this is, you know, I was like, you know, I'm like, yeah, you're cool, but you're not real. And all of a sudden one of the scribes popped his head up and telepathed to me. He was like, you're not real either. And I just went back to writing. And I don't really know why I wanted to tell that story other than like, I don't know. I feel like I don't know it's real, but things happen. Like,
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter after a while. Things happen.
yeah.
And that is the wonder of experiencing phenomena. I don't know why, but things happen. I love that. That's a good line for the year. Well, okay. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a delight. I don't know if we freed people or...
Yeah, I have no idea.
The art of being present and what that might look like, everyone. So whatever you notice, you'll notice it for you. And you can reflect on the way we've been noticing it. And there are no rights or wrongs in it, how any of it shows up. When you know, I always put the clear, well, to do no harm, right? Because I don't think it is about harm. I think that can be part of the story. And it's not one's intention. And what comes out of that is what comes out of it. Stuff happens. So thank you, Jill.
Yeah, thank you, Janet.
All right, sweetie. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jill's influences elevate us all and serve to remind us to never forget the child within who is creating your next moment. From the film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, we have the song Pure Imagination, lyrics by Leslie Bricusse, music by Anthony Newley. And in case the music is running through your head, I have a link listed on the episode 27 website podcast page for you. Pure Imagination. Come with me, and you will be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look, and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do, do it. Want to change the world? There's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with pure imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be. Willy Wonka, channeled through Gene Wilder. And here is a quote written by Elliot Weinberger. The stars, what are they? They are chunks of ice reflecting the sun. They are lights afloat on the waters beyond the transparent dome. They are nails nailed to the sky. They are holes in the great curtain between us and the sea of light. They are holes in the hard shell that protects us from the inferno beyond. They are the daughters of the sun. They are the messengers of the gods. They are shaped like wheels and are condensations of air with flames, roaring through the spaces between the spokes. They sit in little chairs. They are strewn across the sky. They run errands for lovers. every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. Mary Poppins, written by P.L. Travers. Another quote, amazement plus gratitude plus openness plus appreciation equals an irresistible field of energy. Frederick E. Dodson. And this quote from the remarkable Richard Feynman, theoretical physicist who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1965. He is sharing how seeing involves more than just your eye. I have a friend who's an artist and has sometimes taken a view which I don't agree with very well. He'll hold up a flower and say, "Look how beautiful it is," and I'll agree. Then he says, "I as artist can see how beautiful this is, but you as a scientist take this all apart and it becomes a dull thing." And I think that he's kind of nutty. First of all, the beauty that he sees is available to other people and to me too, I believe. Although I may not be quite as refined aesthetically as he is, I can appreciate the beauty of the flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he sees. I could imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside, which also have a beauty. I mean, it's not just the beauty at this dimension, at 1 centimeter. There's also beauty at smaller dimensions, the inner structure, also the processes. The fact that the colors in the flower evolved in order to attract insects to pollinate, it is interesting. It means that insects can see the color. It adds a question. Does this aesthetic sense also exist in the lower forms? Why is it aesthetic? All kinds of interesting questions which the science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower. It only adds. I don't understand how it subtracts. My blog this time, Celebrating Being Life in the Moment, is available on my blog page at my website www.janetandbeyond.com, and you can hear it on my YouTube channel, Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet Barrett. For just a taste, the first paragraph is, our journeys into enlightenment are all about exploring, while alive, the freedom that we tend to associate with being in the spirit form. They are journeys into enlightenment, not to enlightenment. Tom's meditation this episode reminds us this time of the sheer joy to be found in the phenomenon of breathing. Simple pleasures.
Simple pleasures in meditation and life. At a meditation retreat, the visiting Lama was invited to meditate with the group. Of course he accepted, and in doing so he said, "Why wouldn't I? What could be more pleasant than sitting in the peaceful state of alert relaxation?" It was a surprising response to some of the participants who hadn't quite reached the point of finding pleasure in meditation. They knew that meditation is something that is clearly good for you and should be done. To them it was kind of hard and sometimes physically uncomfortable. Sitting for hours in retreat felt like a formidable endeavor, and worry crept in around the edges of the mind as they wondered if they were up to it. But here was this man who was able to be completely at peace in the experience and was able to enjoy it for what it was. Yes, meditation requires a certain amount of self-discipline, and it may involve moving through some unpleasantness before releasing whatever process brought that to you. But once one gets beyond the worry and self-judgment, it can be quite pleasant, to say the least. Joyful, even ecstatic states may occur. Teachers may warn students not to get too attached to those states. But how about we observe our own resistance to the pleasure of just sitting with an open mind while relaxed and alert? When you do that, do you notice any thoughts that impede your meditation? Can you let them go? Can you just notice the pleasure of the experience? Here is a simple mindfulness practice to orient you toward the pleasure of a moment. Direct your attention to your breath. After you exhale, Delay inhaling for a few seconds until you start to feel the urge to inhale. When you do inhale, notice the pleasure that comes from breathing in and satisfying that urge. It may be subtle, but bring the pleasure into focus. Continue to notice the pleasure of the in-breath for a few more breaths. Then shift your attention to the out-breath. As you exhale, you automatically relax your diaphragm, your rib cage compresses, and the air flows out of your lungs. There's really no effort involved. It's all about letting go. That relaxation can be an experience of pleasure. Spend a few breaths attentive to that enjoyable feeling of relaxing with each out-breath. Soon you may notice that the in-breath has its pleasure and the out-breath has its different pleasure. What was automatic and a necessity can be a source of enjoyment. As you go about your day, be open to opportunities to experience a simple pleasure. Activities that we do often become automatic, and we may lose awareness that they are pleasant. Eating, grooming the body, moving from place to place, performing simple tasks may contain an element of pleasure that we can lose track of unless we are mindful of them. May you have a pleasant day.
You can reach Jill at www.jillfalkart.com. Thank you for joining me here at Journeys to Enlightenment with Janet. A new episode is released every 2 weeks. Any questions or thoughts or guests you'd like to suggest, you can email me directly at janetandbeyondpodcast@outlook.com. For more information about all the elements that make up each episode, they are on my podcast page at my website, www.janetandbeyond.com. While there, you will also find information about my other podcast show, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and all about my work with clients. You can sign up to receive my regular weekly blog, Life in the Beyond, Journeys into Enlightenment. If you're looking for other regular opportunities to sit in heart-centered awareness with myself and others, you can join us in my Fuzzy Photons playground groups I offer on Wednesdays. Live interactive space via Zoom video conferencing. You can follow each episode of this podcast series on my YouTube channel, Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Till the next time, notice what feels different right in this moment. It is real, and it can last a lifetime.